Hi, everybody. We're going to talk about the cost of college, sources of aid, and scholarships in this presentation. To get started, I want to go over the components of the cost of college. Oftentimes, when we look online, we will see the cost of tuition and fees, but there's so much more that goes into the actual full time cost of attendance that I want to make sure you're aware of. So, tuition and fees are what it costs a student to sign up and take those classes. It is pretty much a fixed cost. It can vary if they're not going full time, but these are costs that students have to pay each semester. Room and board is the cost of housing and food. So, oftentimes, colleges for a lot of these categories will put out their budget, their typical cost of attendance, and room and board, they might do the highest dollar amount. But your student should really research what kind of dorm do I want to live in? The suite style, the community style, the single room or the triple room, and then what meal plan do I need? Do I need a 10-day 5 meal plan because I only want to eat lunch and dinner during the weekday, 7-day 14 meal plan, or do I want to add on different things to the cost of my food? So those are a little bit variable, but if they're going to live on campus, they're going to have those two costs, and they can be pretty pricey. If you have a student that's planning to live at home and go to school locally, they will not have a room and board component to their cost of college. Books and supplies can be very different in cost. So some schools might say it's going to cost you $1,200 a year for books and supplies, but you might find that students can rent textbooks. They can get an e-textbook. Their textbook might be built into their online platform. So again, that cost is just an estimate. Transportation, if a student's living locally, it might just be their parking permit, or it might be their car payment or insurance payment. But if they're going to school in Hawaii, they're going to have to pay for flights to come home every once in a while. So, transportation, again, variable, but based on the student's situation. And then miscellaneous and personal expenses, these are shampoo and conditioner, your clothes, it can be deodorant, things that you need to live. So again, a variable cost, but it's always included in the budget. So when we look at this, when we just talk about that top category of tuition and fees, the average tuition and fees from in 24-25 for private colleges was about $43,000. Again, that's not including housing and food, books and supplies, anything like that. It is just the cost of tuition. Public out-of-state colleges was about 24,000, and then our public in-state colleges, this is actually nationwide, not our in-state colleges, but on average they're about 11,000. So different costs doesn't mean that a private college is out of reach. Sometimes they have more aid that they can give to you, but it's just a difference in the type of colleges that are out there. Sticker price is very real. Harvard University advertised their sticker price, meaning that what they say out there as their cost of attendance was $61,000 for 24-25. But when they boiled it down, the average cost of students after their need-based grants was about 14,000. So yes, there were some students that paid 61,000 and some students that paid zero. But the majority or the average was $14,000 a year. So I always tell students, don't rule a school out based on their like published cost of attendance. We need to apply for federal student aid, scholarships, and see what we can get that down to. Private schools can often make up the price gap through tuition discounts and institutional aid. The study down there showed that for 23-24, the average discounted tuition rate for private colleges was 56%. So again, sticker price is not necessarily what you're going to be paying. There are no loan schools, so different ways for lower income students to get help where it might not be a scholarship, but it's a tuition reduction or a no loan. So, no loan schools promise that they will meet all of your demonstrated need based on your FAFSA with free aid so they do not have to take out loans. WashU and St. Louis has, for 2024, said that they are going to meet the need of students through grants, scholarships, work study, and no loans are included. The next type of situation is a tuition-free offer. So schools across the nation, there's lots of them, say you can come here completely free, meaning or tuition-free for students with income under a certain amount. So USC 80,000, you don't pay tuition. Harvard says if you make under 85,000, you don't pay tuition, and Dartmouth says they'll cover the full tuition if the family makes under 125,000 or less with their typical assets. So when we look at different funding sources, these are the types of options we have. We have our federal financial aid. You have your school-based scholarships, state-based scholarships, private scholarships, and then money from parents and money from the student from working. We're going to go over the top few. So federal financial aid, you apply for these programs through the FAFSA. So students will have to apply for the FAFSA, and then they can try to qualify for Pell Grants. Pell Grant is a need-based aid and can be up to $7,395 for students who are eligible. Last year, they had more money for more Pell Grant students than ever. So students that might not have qualified in the past or families that didn't qualify, we should still encourage to qualify or to apply because they might qualify now. FSEOG grant can be between $100 and $4,000. Work study is a unique program where if a student qualifies for work study, they can work on campus and the federal government pays their wages instead of the school. So it makes it where the student has a very easy time getting a job on campus. They can work in the career services office. They can work in admissions. They can work cleaning test tubes for the chemistry department. They can work anywhere that they can or doing research under their department. But the amount varies. The new thing with work study is that it is not automatically packaged with students through their award letter. They typically now will have to call and say, I'd like to be considered for work study. And then there are federal loans. The maximum amount of $5,500 of subsidized and unsubsidized loans is what's available for first year students. So those are all applied for through the FAFSA. And you have to apply for them every single year. The second type of funding is school-based scholarships. So every school can do things differently. Sometimes they'll make you apply through a separate application. Sometimes you're automatically considered. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's different departments you apply for. So I like to use UNM as my example. So when you apply to UNM, you're automatically considered for their academic or merit-based aid based on your GPA. So the majority of their scholarships, if a student applies, they meet that, they get it. But then they also have two other scholarships, their President's and Regent Scholarship, that students have to apply for with a separate application. So automatic and application options exist. Athletic scholarships, if a student is being recruited to play athletics, then they can talk to their coach about an athletic scholarship. Need-based scholarships can also be awarded to those who have demonstrated financial need. So you have to fill out the FAFSA, and if federal student grants and programs don't meet your need, some schools do have other need-based scholarships that they can provide you. And then there are department-specific scholarships. Again, back to UNM, their engineering and their nursing program have scholarships for their students. So it's important for students to ask the academic departments they're going into if there's any money that they can apply for. In our state-based aid is very robust. We have the New Mexico Lottery and Opportunity Scholarships. There's lots of intricate details about how these scholarships work, but basically it can cover all tuition fees for our New Mexico residents that have graduated from a New Mexico high school. So the link down below shows you what options there are and the different details that you can help your students with. So, even with all of those types of aid and scholarships and funding, there is often the situation where there's an unrealistic contribution or unmet need. So, students and parents often find that the financial aid, school, and state based scholarships do not cover everything that they need for the full cost of attendance. For most students, it doesn't cover it. But issues students and parents are faced with is having an expected contribution, meaning the school says, we think you should be able to afford this towards your student's education, that's unrealistic. So they might say, you guys should be able to pay $10,000, but based on their current financial situation, that's not feasible. Or they might say, here's everything we can give you, but it doesn't meet the full cost of attendance. And so that's what's called a financial aid gap. So, private scholarships are available to help students meet that unmet need without taking on additional debt. So, we're going to go through some examples that I have found that I like, that I've heard of, that I share with my students. So, the first three that I like to talk about are just entries into scholarship drawings. Big Future is a college board program, and students could get entries for completing their FAFSA, for creating a college list, a career list, a scholarship list, for doing different things that they're already doing. Students starting in the 10th grade all the way through senior year can enter, and there's drawings every single month. So let's say I did my college list this month. I am still in the drawing until I win something, if I win something. But they draw for $500 and $40,000 scholarships. I know I've had a few $500 scholarships in my school, and I know there's a $40,000 one in our state. So tell students to do that one. NMEAF is our New Mexico Education Assistance Foundation. They are their purpose. One of their main purposes is to help students fill out the FAFSA. So if students fill it out on their own, with you, with them, they can fill out a quick form and get entered into the $500 drawing scholarship, and they draw every month. The APS Education Foundation, so if a student is in Albuquerque Public Schools, they can put in an entry into the varsity grant. They get 10 entries. There's 10 different categories. They don't have to do all of them. But if they fill out their FAFSA and upload a picture of their confirmation page, they get an entry. If they apply to a college, they get an entry. If they go on a college tour, do a Why I Work activity, do lots of different things. There's 10 different categories they can enter, and they draw for seven $1,000 scholarships every year. The Albuquerque Community Foundation is another large organization with scholarships, and it's not just for Albuquerque students. So the Carl F. Scott's scholarship is for students from Quay County. The Manufactured Housing Association has a scholarship for any student that lives in a manufactured home. Sussman Miller, we're going to talk about in a second, but they try to meet the gap in the need. Youth and foster care for any student that has been in foster care. The James Ledwith is for anybody that has overcome a hardship and they have persevered. Kiwanis Club for students that have strong experience and strong academic records with community service. Manuel Lujan, there's 24 schools in central New Mexico that can have their students apply for that $500 scholarship. Symphonic Music Scholarship, and then the Woodcock family. So the Woodcock family is for science and math, and the symphonic music is anybody that has been with the Albuquerque Youth Symphony Program. The Sussman Miller was that one that I mentioned through the Community Foundation that tries to meet the unmet need of students. They have to fill out the FAFSA, and they have to have an unmet need after the school has given them their award letter. The awards vary based on the demonstrated need and can be up to $8,000 a year. High school students that have a 3.5 GPA can apply for this one, and college students with a 3.0. It's important to note for a lot of scholarships that are out there, you can apply at any time in your college career, whether you're a high school senior or a college junior, you can apply. So it's important to tell students that so that they can keep looking for money as they go through school. The Kirtland Spouses Foundation is for any armed forces personnel assigned to Kirtland Air Force Base or on a remote assignment and they reside within 50 miles. Their Spouses Club has a scholarships that student can apply for. It will be available starting in February of 2025. NMAA, you often think of NMAA as athletics, but it's actually athletics and activities. So, students that are part of FFA or orchestra, mock trial, Skills USA, speech and debate, any of the activities that are covered under NMAA can apply for many of the scholarships on that site. 505 New Mexico True is looking for students who have a commitment to pursue higher education and make a positive impact on the agricultural industry. That's a $5,000 scholarship. The organ transplant awareness program, when I first saw this one, I thought that it was for students that had either had an organ transplant or that were a donor, but it's not. It's just to raise awareness of the importance of organ and tissue donation. So, and it's only for New Mexico students. So, a great scholarship, and students only have to have a 2.0 GPA. The Jiffy Lube What Drives You scholarship is only for students in our surrounding states, but this is one that my students have been very successful with. They can upload a video, write an essay on what drives them, and you can find that one on the link on that slide as well. The Parnell Law Distracted Driving Scholarship is an essay. He gives away $5,000 to 3 applicants, and it's really just talking about the importance of just avoiding distracted driving. You might have heard of this one on the radio, the Toyota High School Scholarship Challenge. They give away $60,000 in scholarships, and it's to anybody that resides in the area codes listed. Daniels Fund is also a very big scholarship for our students. It's only available to students in Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming. They have to have a 3.0 GPA. They do have to have a test score, so an SAT of 490 or and an evidence-based reading and writing of 490 or an ACT composite of 18. Students do have to have financial need, and so they have to fill out the FAFSA for it or an equivalent application. So have students check that out because it does meet full need. It's kind of a last dollar scholarship, so have them check that one out as well. Hispanic Scholarship Fund, any high school students with a 3.0 or college students with a 2.5 are eligible, but they do have to fill out the FAFSA or a state-paid financial aid application. There are also scholarships based on what the student is studying for a major. So Society of Women Engineers, or the Andrew Peak is the automotive technology. The David R. Woodling Scholarship is for anybody going into metals technology with a concentration in machine tool technology and welding. There are also nursing scholarships. So this website listed here is for UNM, but they do not have to be going to UNM. It is just a list of private scholarships that nursing students could apply for. There's a cybersecurity, journalism diversity scholarship list, and visual arts scholarships. There are also scholarships for undocumented and international students because they typically cannot qualify for state or for federal aid, and so they often need to try to find other sources of funding to help them meet their need. So these scholarships links can help them find scholarships that they can apply for. We talked about the Big Future Scholarship already, but those are the categories that they can get entries into. And that one, they just create a College Board account and go to the Big Future site and start looking at those. NMSU and UNM both have external scholarship lists so that you can go and students can look through it. They do not have to be going to UNM or NMSU, but you can find different outside scholarships. So this is the NMSU list. This is the UNM list. APS also has a really amazing college and career website, and part of that is a financial aid and scholarships page. Talks a lot about financial aid, but towards the bottom, it gives a lot of links that students can explore scholarships. Some of those that are on their list are specific to different ethnic categories or religious categories, those type of things. So really encourage your students or link to these for your students to see as well. The military also has educational benefits. So, if a student is interested in serving but wants to get their education before they enlist, or go ahead and go to an academy and get their education there before they go into the service or after they enlist, these are the different options. So, military academies are like the Air Force Academy, West Point, those type of things. Students start the application process at the end of their junior year. They need to apply to our local representatives to try to get a congressional nomination. Once they get their nomination, they can apply to the different academies. And if they get an appointment to the academy, it is a full ride and usually covers over $400,000 of education for free. The students will serve after they go through the academy, and the service requirements vary. ROTC scholarships, the student can pick what college they go to, but if they get an ROTC scholarship, they're part of that ROTC program. They go through leadership classes, they get the degree in what they want to get, but then once they graduate, they are enlisted, they are become an officer, and they get a salary, and they have a full-time job in the military. Again, service requirements vary. The ROTC scholarships, they can cover a flat amount, they can cover all tuition, they can cover a portion towards room and board, and a monthly stipend. So it varies depending on the service the student is applying for. The GI Bill for students that are currently active duty or select reserve or National Guard. The GI Bill can pay tuition and fees and a book stipend as well as living allowance. Tuition assistance also for students who are active duty, reserved, or National Guard. It will pay to 100% of their tuition and fees. And then if a student is interested in the National Guard, they can enlist, go to boot camp, and then they only have to serve one weekend a month and 2 weeks a year. And they get full tuition assistance, so 100% of their tuition and fees paid for, and a monthly stipend while they're going to school. QuestBridge is another really cool program that our students can apply for starting in junior year. Our high achieving students, low income students. If they apply and they get selected for their match program, students will rank the colleges, and if the college matches with them or picks them, they get a full ride scholarship. So last year, I had a student who qualified as a match student. She listed her colleges and she got selected by USC. USC only selects five students across the nation every year. And so she is at USC with a full ride scholarship. So, super cool opportunities for high achieving, low income students. If your students are interested in going out of state and looking at going to schools in the West, have them look at the WUI program. It's a Western Undergraduate Exchange. Students who are from a Western state, which we are, and thinking about attending college in the West should look to see if their school participates in the WUI program. Participating schools offer a reduced tuition rate, which is equal to 150% of in-state tuition. So if in-state tuition's 10,000 and out-of-state tuition's 20,000, the student would only pay 150% of that in-state, which would be 15,000. So it reduces that rate for them. Not all schools in the West participate. Some say that they only participate for certain majors, and some say they only have a few scholarships available. So it's important to do their research on that. You might have heard of the term reciprocal scholarships, and so some schools offer lower tuition rates for New Mexico students. So Texas Tech and the University of Houston, for example, their New Mexico tuition rate is only $900 more than in-state tuition. And if a student qualifies for a scholarship of $1,000 or more, they give them in-state tuition and they get their scholarship as well. Adams State has New Mexico students receive in-state tuition rates, and Fort Lewis says if they meet certain criteria, they also get in-state tuition. Before the senior year, I often have parents and students asking are there scholarships they can apply for before they're a senior. Unigo has great lists of scholarships for students for freshmen, sophomore, and juniors. So, tips for students. Please make sure they're setting up a professional email account. Too hot for you at gmail.com is not going to make a good impression. They should also not use their school account because many of our districts have them, they lose access to that school account once they graduate. When they're writing essays, please encourage them to save them separately. Don't just constantly rewrite the same essay to use for different scholarships. So write one, save it, make a copy of it, edit it, save that one, make a copy. By the time they get to their third or fourth one, they can take paragraphs from each one and make the new essay. Don't say, I deserve the scholarship because I need money. That is obvious. We all need more money. But say why they're a good investment, what they will give back to our community once they get their degree, that type of thing. Have someone that they know, as well as an English teacher, read it. Somebody they know will be able to say, hey, this is so much bigger than what you're making it out to be. We should elaborate on it. And an English teacher can just check to make sure that it reads properly. Please tell them not to write it the night before. Make sure they're taking time to develop it. Make sure they answer the question. That is something that I've heard from admissions reps and scholarships that sometimes students just submit an essay, but they're not actually answering the question. And make sure they follow directions. Some of them put really absurd directions on it to see if the students will follow them. Make sure that if they say only one staple or two-sided or sealed transcripts or that it's postmarked or received by a date, make sure they're following all of those rules. When they're searching for scholarships, encourage them to explore what makes them different and search for scholarships based on that difference. So, is it a different background? Are they a minority? Is it based on their major, or are they trying to go into a non-traditional career? Anything that makes them unique. Tell them to never rule themselves out. Often there aren't very many students actually applying. I had a scholarship this year that was only for females in my senior class, so about 200 students, and nobody applied. I had to reopen it up, and then I only had 4 apply. So make sure they know that they might always think that there's more students that have a better GPA or better experience in them, but those students might not be applying. So, things you can do as a professional, encourage them to practice for and take the SAT or ACT. While a lot of schools have gone test optional for admission, some of them are still requiring them for scholarships. Texas Tech, for example, says we'll give you a low dollar amount if you're just applying with your GPA, but if you apply with your test score, you can get this much. If you take or retake the SAT or ACT and get a higher score, we will give you more money if it bumps you into a higher category. So encourage them to use that as a piece to help get more money. Research school-based scholarship requirements so that you're knowledgeable about it and that you can share those with your students. Connect with one of your English teachers to see if they can have students write a scholarship essay at the beginning of senior year. This will help them develop their thoughts and fine tune that scholarship essay, but also helps bring awareness that, oh, I can apply for scholarships. And then finally, work with your PTA and local businesses to set up scholarships for your seniors. When I started at my school, we had a couple, but then it has really grown. We've got about 7 now. And it's unfortunately through memorial scholarships from students or staff deaths, but also I've got a few local community ones that they just wanted to find a student in our school and pick their winner from them. So make sure that you try to develop those relationships as well. That encourages more students to apply also because they know it's just for them. So, our challenge as professionals convincing students to look for and apply for scholarships. Yes, we need to tell them that college is expensive. And yes, we need to tell them that they might not give them enough money, but we also need to try not to discourage them. So it's a very fine balance. My role is to present my students with parents with relative and timely resources and encourage them to apply. So when we talk about relative and timely, relative is local scholarships that only a small population of students can apply for. Those that we know that our students have been successful with in the past or that represent our population. So if you start with those and say, hey, this one is only for students that are in our city, and tell them that, they're like, oh, I have a better chance of getting that. And then that gets them started. So, relative. Once they've kind of explored those, if they want more, then they can go out to those national lists or their big lists and start looking for more. Timely. Give students a list at least once a month. They will procrastinate. We all know that. So, being fresh in their mind and constant reminders is important. If you have an individual scholarship that is very relative to your students, like mine that are only for my seniors, send that out separately. It put the spotlight on it. Even if the student doesn't qualify for a scholarship like that, it will remind them, oh yeah, I should look for other scholarships. Make sure you're including your parents and your staff in communication so that they can help give those reminders and activate your students in it to help get the word out. Use X, formerly Twitter, Instagram. They can make signs, etc. Just to really make it a school-wide effort. So that's the end of the presentation. I really appreciate all of you. I hope that this all makes sense and inspires you to find ways to help your students understand the cost of college, understand the resources that are available, and so we can help more students realize that going to college is a possibility. Thank you all.